The wonders of technology.
Yes, the wonders of technology. So just a reminder that we are going to be broadcasting this live on Facebook for those that are joining us via Zoom. Okay. And share screen.
Can you see that screen, Frank? Cool.
Okay. So, tēnā koutou katoa, no mai haere mai ki our farm, ko Joe Sheridan tuko ingoa. So welcome to our farm and the Our Farm Focus Day. Normally we would have you out here at the farm, but unfortunately, due to the situation around us at the moment, we are hosting this online. Just a reminder that we are hosting this online via Zoom, so we will have people connected via audio conferencing, and we will also be hosting live on Facebook. So we will be hoping to get some questions from people there as well. Just a couple of things, I guess. If you've got questions, feel free to either raise your hand or type them in, or we'll have options to ask questions as we go throughout the session as well. Please feel free to ask away. We have posted on the Our Farm website the Wagon Wheel KPIs and all the results and supporting data that is available to you now, and you'll see that they're under each of the Wagon Wheel section headings. So we will be referring to some of the graphs as we go through the presentation, and that might help to ensure that we're all looking at the same lots of data. And for those of you who may have had a chance to look at those first, you should be able to find that you might have some questions that have come out of it, and please feel free to ask those during the session as well. So we've got Tom Buckley with me here today, who is the farm manager, and the way that we're going to run today's session really is to present each of the Wagon Wheel areas, and then we're going to get Tom just to talk a little bit about some of the highlights and challenges from a farm management perspective, and also some of the changes that we might be looking to implement for the 21-22 season. Okay, so let's just go through here. Oops, sorry. Previous. Next, I need to go forward. Oh, okay, sorry. Sorry, I'm right at the end.
That's my fault because you were showing me.
I'll get you right to the beginning. There's a quick preview of what we're going to present to you today. Okay, here we go. So the Wagon Wheel has been a unique feature of our farm since its inception. And in 2022, the wheel KPIs were revised to better reflect the growing focus on environmental, animal wellbeing and workplace standards, alongside having a high-performing, financially stable business. And the Wagon Wheel targets are actually guided by our partners, our joint venture partner, Lincoln University, Balance Agri-Nutrients, Dairy NZ, Fonterra Farm Source, PGG Wrightsons and Westpac, along with the local farmers that represent best practices that are achievable in the industry and available to all dairy farmers. What we're wishing to do is to demonstrate what most farmers can achieve in 5 years' time, and what some farmers are, of course, already achieving, if they're not already there. The 2021 results are the first year that we've reported against these revised targets. And the outer rim on the circle actually reflects 100% achievement of our goal. So you can see the Wagon Wheel KPI that's represented on the right there. When we get to 100%, you'll see that that area is filled out. Our task is to reach the outer limit in each of these areas and progress in a balanced way over time. And we must do this by not trading off results in other areas. We use the primary KPIs, which we measure and report annually throughout the year. They're normally about 2 to 4 indicators that are measurable for any farm business, and they best capture the driving forces for performance at our farm in that particular area. And we also have secondary KPIs, and the secondary KPIs, they capture areas that we share information with farmers and rural professionals, and they provide a little bit of that extra detail in that area, and they're used to ensure that we're sharing data that has been used across different aspects of the industry. They can be a little bit harder to set targets in and measure annually, but they do represent considerations that we are discussing when we choose and make system changes. So, like I said before, follow the reports to see our performance against each of these target areas, along with the supporting evidence, and we'll try and provide some of the narrative that goes with it. So the first area that we wanted to discuss was farm performance. This really underpins the business health and ability to provide leading animal care and environmental outcomes while taking care of the farm team. So you have to be in the black to be in the green. Without a really strong performing farm, we cannot afford to achieve or to extend ourselves in other areas of the business. Our system tries to make the most of our natural resources, the climate, and the expectations of our wider community. We aim to have high quality cows, converting feed into quality product through well-informed and timely decision making. It's driven by growing and harvesting environmentally friendly forages, and which are supported through the strategic use of purchased in supplements. Our milk production prior to the 31st December target aims to make most of the normally reliable spring season that we have, and is driven by an earlier compact calving. So just to present the results from the 2021 year under these two key KPI areas. So our pasture and crop harvested figure for the 2021 season is measured out of FarmX. So we collect pasture growth data through our weekly farm walks. The pasture growth data is used for us to make tactical decisions on farm, and also to give paddock rankings, so we know which paddocks are performing well and which ones we may need to invest in trying to improve. FarmX data uses a model of outputs, so milk and body condition score and pasture cover changes, and uses the inputs in the form of supplements, and is able to back calculate potential pasture growth model. We're using this potential pasture growth as our reporting figure. So just so that you understand how that figure comes about. What we have found though over the last 2 years is that our pasture and crop harvested has not been at the 15 tonne that we need it to be at, and after the drought season in the 1920 year it went down to 11.4, and the season that we've just had it went back up to about 11.7, and we'll share a little bit about what was driving the results around that. The other key figure that we're looking at is the milk solids to the 31st December. We achieved 810 last season. We hit our 850 target on about the 10th of January. This is a big driver for us to ensure that we are getting milk production prior to being exposed to the risk of dry summers. Okay, so a couple of things to share in relation to how the season panned out. We measure soil moisture on the farm. We've got a 600mm probe that measures every 10 centimetres. This is the information that comes out of the top 10 centimetres of our soil profile. What's really, really interesting is if you follow the 2021 season, we thought last year was a dry summer. This season just gone, it was actually drier than the drought year. And I guess the reason why this was a big challenge for us was the total rainfall. Total rainfall at about 837 millimetres was only slightly higher than the drought year. But what we found with the total rainfall is that when it landed was in such we got the rainfall at times that allowed us to continue to grow both pasture and crop. So you'll notice on this graph here, this is the rainfall graph. It's graphic 1.6 in your handouts. What's really noticeable for us was how dry the September and our October rainfall events were. You'll see the 5-year average tracking above. That 5-year average is based on around about 1,000. It keeps dropping, and we used to be around 1,100 average rainfall. Every time we do a 5-year average, the average is actually getting lower and lower. But what you'll see is we had a noticeably dry September and October, and that had quite a significant impact on our pasture growth during that period where we would normally grow a lot of feed. And we had significant rainfall in November. That rainfall changed pasture cover, increased by about 200 to 300 within a couple of weeks, and we had serious issues with pasture quality going into December. We couldn't get contractors on farm, just like a lot of farmers, to harvest the silage, and it came up with quite a challenging situation from a feed allocation point of view. We had quite good rainfall in January, and we had another really good significant rainfall event in March. Both of those ensured that we had really good crop yields for the year, and meant that we did have, I guess, what we'd call a green drought, where the timeliness of the rainfall events ensured that we were able to keep ticking along pasture. So that by the time we got to April and May, the farm was in a really good growing state, and we managed to make the most of the late season production. So how the climate influences our production system is in our growth rate data. So we could see a huge drop from our peak growth in the September and October period, and November as well. So we were growing around that 55 up to about 59 over those 3 months, where normally we would be up as high as 72. So really big implications for us in relation to the amount of supplements that we were able to make. So we would normally harvest about 55 hectares of silage on farm. This year, that was about 35. So a period in which we would traditionally try and transfer quite a lot of grass silage over into the summer, we weren't able to grow and harvest that feed, which meant that we were then using some imported grass silage to be able to fill that gap. The other thing you can see in that pasture growth profile is that we were able to get through sort of February, March with about sort of 12 to 19 kilos grown during that time. That was still well below our long-term average of around that 27 to 32. So it was still a very dry summer and quite challenging to feed the cows through that period. So what happened as a result of that was, if we look at our monthly performance, this is graphic 116, and it shows our milk production per month compared to the target. The target is the open bar on the right-hand side, and that effectively represents a total of 175,000 kilos of milk solid. So what we can see here is that our early season production, excuse me, through July and August was lower than targeted. This was primarily due to a later start to calving and a slightly slower calving rate. In September and October, the cows peaked higher than they ever had. They were in really good condition as they went into calving and were able to mobilise that body condition and had really good quality feed ahead of them during that period. November production dropped off quite significantly due to some of the quality issues that we had, and they tended to hold a bit in December. What happened through January and the rest of the season is we were able to exceed our production targets quite significantly through March, but for the rest of the late summer autumn period, we had good crop yields and we had good pasture recovery, and that enabled us to exceed our target by producing about 178,000 by the end of the season. So this was all done too in the backdrop of an increase in payout. I think when we did the budget, we were looking at a $6.40 payout, and the season, of course, ended up being about $7.55. So part of our response was to make sure we were making the most of the profit opportunity that was available for that year. This graphic 1.117 shows milk production per cow and just kind of highlights the significant increase that we had in per cow production, both at peak, so that's representing the increase in quality of the cows on the farm and the high quality feed that was ahead of them. And also, if you notice through that January, February, March period, we were able to maintain the per cow production a lot higher. that was done under 3 and 2 milking, and it was based on feeding the cows around about 16 kilos, with about 4 kilos of crop there, a couple of kilos of palm kernel, and grass silage anywhere between about 4 to 6 kilos as well. So that is really where some of that late autumn production we were able to come through. And you can also see that significant drop off in November that a lot of farmers in the Waikato had experienced when cows came off that peak very, very sharply and significantly in that season.
Just following that rain at the end of October, just seemed to take off, and we lost that quality and just drove that drop in production.
Yep. Okay, so just breaking that down into feed supply and demand. So while the total feed supply has declined each year, so we've gone down from 14.7 that was eaten down to 13.2 over the last 4 years. We've actually been able to produce more milk from less feed by focusing on the quality and the strategic use of the feed. So less of the feed has actually been used for maintenance, and more of it's actually been used for milk production. The imported supplements that we use, so around 2.2 tonne there, enable us to grow and harvest more pasture and crops on the farm. In the winter and spring period, they are a tool to prevent overgrazing and pasture damage. And in the summer, they're used to maintain body condition score and keep some of the cows in milk in order to utilise what we have had quite typically a really good, strong autumn regrowth or recovery. We've produced more milk from homegrown feed by focusing on the quality of pasture, crops and feed allocation management. So while the climatic conditions have actually reduced our total feed supply over this time, by improving the quality of feed and the utilisation, we've actually had better feed conversion efficiency, and we've gone from about 13.9 kilograms of dry matter eaten to produce a kilo of milk solid down to about 10.7 for the season that has just gone. And Tom and I, during the season, we're just recalling how we were, it felt quite significant as we went through the season. The feed profile was very, very similar, but we were just able to convert a whole lot more into milk. So this increasing production per cow with a lower stocking rate and improved herd genetics has also assisted this. The herd is currently in the top 6%, 6 to 7% of BW in New Zealand. Okay, so along with our focus on being able to produce as much milk as we can from homegrown feed, and growing the right type of feed and the right quantity and quality of feed on our farm, we're also focused on the quality of the milk that we are producing or the product we're producing. And this graphic here, 1.21, just demonstrates the somatic cell count. So we measure somatic cell, well, for the 2021 season, we were looking at somatic cell count and FEI as our key drivers of milk production. You can see our somatic cell count for this season here, tracking along. This is the 2021, a lot lower than the year prior. Something I guess happened in December, didn't it, Tom? You had a bit of a clean out.
Yeah, so we did some cultures on following the November herd test and found a few staff cows that weren't very good cows either. So we used the opportunity to get rid of, well, we got rid of 10 cows, and I think 8 of them were high cell count cows that were repeat offenders.
Excellent. Okay, and then part of the idea was preparing ourselves also for achieving the tahi in this season coming. So we wanted to make sure we got somatic cell counts under control as much as possible to prepare us for this season. The graphic 1.22 demonstrates the fat evaluation index for us. So you'll see on the left-hand side the change from the grading system to the numerical system. And the goal for us was to stay within the green and yellow bars. Last year, the black line is our 2021 year compared to the year prior. It'd be fair to say that we've kind of got your head around the allocation of palm kernel in conjunction with brassicas in relation, and it takes a lot of good feed planning, doesn't it, Tom, to make sure that we're not in a position where we do have to feed more than about 2.5 kilos of palm kernel, even during a dry summer, because for us with brassicas in the system, that's really enough to put us over the line, isn't it?
Yeah, and transitioning them onto the brassicas, not having too much pumpkin in there either. So for the bigger herd, we didn't have the pumpkin in there. The younger girls, I was just trying to protect condition scores, so they had access on the race at a lower volume. So that really helped manage that FEI through that transition period.
Excellent. Okay, so I thought we would just take a couple of minutes now just to see whether there's any questions around that first target area of farm performance in the Wagon Wheel before we move on to the animal wellbeing. And what I might do while there's any questions coming through, I'm just going to ask Tom very quickly just to share, as the farm manager, some of your highlights and challenges to work towards those targets and any potential changes that we're looking at for this season.
I think you said it earlier, ticking along, I think that sums up last season. We never really had that romping growth through spring. As Joe already said, it was easier to manage because we didn't have those huge surpluses and taking it out as silage. We were always expecting it, and at the moment, dealing with this season, we're on that knife edge. We want to let them go, but we're just not seeing the growth coming up behind. And it was very much the same last year. We're using the information we're getting from the weather station, that soil moisture. We knew that soil moisture was going to be a limiting factor, so that was when we made the decision to go out and source some bought-in silage from Fonterra, and that really, that certainly made me feel a little bit more comfortable with how I was going to get through summer, because we know that we need X amount of silage to get through the summer period to get to the autumn rain. Using the same information this year, we've signed up some silage to get through that period. I've got a little bit of silage locked up now. It's difficult. We're trying to be pasture based, but when you're not seeing the growth that you're expecting, you do struggle to put the surplus in the stack.
Yeah, one of the key things is the access to data has really enabled us to be able to make timely decisions, and that has then also meant that we were able to source feed at a better price, to be able to plan ahead and reduce some of the risks that come out of being reactive to the challenges of a dry summer. So I guess the key thing is data is valuable for making informed strategic decisions and to be able to do them in a profitable manner.
And making sure that we're buying in good quality supplements and not, during the drought we had to buy in some bales that weren't as good as we were hoping, but they did get us through. So by buying early season silage, we can kind of guarantee that we're getting good quality stuff, which will turn our the feed into milk.
Okay, as we keep moving through the Wagon Wheel KPI areas, the next one we wanted to talk about was animal wellbeing. So this is a critical component of having healthy animals who are able to convert the feed that we grow into quality products. We've got 4 primary KPIs that exist under this Wagon Wheel KPI, Wagon Wheel area. Healthy cows, purposeful lives for calves, replacements reared, and healthy calves. So just very briefly, the healthy cows, what we want to be able to do is have 15% or less involuntary culls. And the reason why we have this goal is that we also have a KPI that sits alongside it, which is to have 21% replacements reared. This is to try and reduce our total methane production out of our farm system. And in order to reduce our replacement rate, we need to make sure that we're continuing to progress the highest genetic cows available on our farm, and we still need enough selection pressure so that we can cull on production and productivity traits. So last year we ended up with a 14% empty rate, which meant that we only had 5% of culls that left the farm due to mastitis, lameness, or other health conditions. We want to be able to continue to move that number down to about 15%. So it was a decrease on the year prior, but we've still got a bit of work in that space. The biggest driver for us still is to make sure we are achieving our target of about 10% empty rate, and that will allow us a 5% I guess, movement and other health traits before we have to cull for production. Purposeful Lives for Calves is really about meeting the needs of our wider community. This is a reflection of having calves that are purposely bred with an objective in mind as to where they're heading after they've been born on the farm, and is probably a result of our St. Peter's community and being such a public farm right next to Cambridge, and probably a changing industry perspective as well. The replacement reared, like I said before, we want the highest quality genetics to continue through our herd, but we want to do it with the lowest environmental footprint. And also raising replacements is becoming a really costly business, particularly to achieve the target live weights required. So we want to be able to reduce the amount that we need to be having come through our system. Healthy calves we measure as a result of our early season animal care, and what we do is take total blood protein tests. So last year, that was the 2021 year, 4 out of the 5 calves that we tested, the random calves tested, achieved the threshold. This year we did it again, 5 out of the 6 achieved the threshold. So we were confident that's adequate. Our early calf rearing system is adequate to ensure that these calves are getting the best possible start to life on farm. Just a couple of bits of data that we wanted to share that talk to these KPIs. The first one was the lameness. So that was probably that's a really big part of us being able to have less cows leave the system for non-productive reasons. So I just wondered, Tom, whether you wanted to talk a little bit about the lameness events. What you'll see is that the bottom line down here, the dark blue line, is this year's versus the year prior. I think we've reduced it from about 34% lame cows. So a lame cow is identified as any cow that has been removed from the herd to have a treatment. It doesn't indicate that she had antibiotics. And we've got from about 34% down to about 13%. We're actually targeting less than 12%. So we've still got some room to move in it, but we had quite a big significant change there, didn't we, Tom? What was some of the key drivers there?
So two really, we identified some issues with the races. So we had quite an extensive amount of race work done over an autumn and a spring, and that's made a huge difference in just cow flow and occurrence of lameness, but also managing the cows on the yard. So the yard's designed for just over 300 cows. The big herd usually sits around 235 to 250. So there's still plenty of room on there, but we've actually split the herd in half when they come onto the yard. So we're not having to push them quite so hard with the backing gate. We've also put a mirror above cups on, so you haven't got to walk up and down the steps. And when you're pressing the button to move the backing gate, you can actually look in the mirror and see what's happening on the yard. It's also really useful for seeing pulling cows and what's happening out on the yard in terms of that. But yeah, we've seen a great result, and this year's looking pretty good as well. So.
Okay, thanks, Tom. And the other key criteria is mastitis. So we can see our mastitis tracked higher than we did last year. Probably a significant incident in September where we changed our trajectory and kind of travelled along the same sort of pathway. So even though our somatic cell count was lower this year at 144%, the actual number of cows treated for mastitis was higher. We had about 78 cows, about 19% of the herd compared to 14% the year prior. So what sort of happened in the early season period there, Tom?
So we had a lot of trouble with the automatic teat sprayer, sensors going, but stray voltage, blowing the power board, which wasn't ideal. And that spike from July to pretty much the end of August was driven by 3 issues with that. We found over the 3 or 4 days it took to get the new part in, where we were having to teat spray manually, our cell count came down. But we were stripping the herd twice, if not 3 times weekly. And commend Lani for her effort in managing that with myself, being that it was just us 2 last year. From October onwards, I think, a little bit of dry weather, but we did continue to have cases each week. cell counts, I think, was running lower because we were doing that stripping and obviously finding a clinical case and having to treat it. So this year, again, looking pretty good so far.
Awesome, thank you, Tom. And the other key area that impacts on our voluntary cull KPI is the reproduction performance. So the last season we achieved a 65% 6-week in calf result, which of course was 9% lower than what we were able to achieve the years prior, and below the industry target of 78%. So while the heat detection appeared to be slightly lower than target, it was actually the conception rate which has had the biggest impact on the final result for us. And what we found when we analysed the data with both LIC and our vet was that a couple of key areas. The planned starter mating was moved forward by 1 week to allow us to return back to our normal planned starter calving on the 4th of July. We had quite a significant reduced performance of the 2-year-olds who only achieved a 67% 6-week in calf rate versus 81% the year prior. That was a challenging year. Those heifers returned back to the farm in mid-April. They were at 416 kilos, due to 52% of them being under their target weight. They gained another 39 kilos to reach the 455 on the 3rd of June, but they calved at really, really high conditions. So they were 5.8 and they were 4.9 at planned starter mating, and they continued to drop body condition score. So by mid-November, they were 4.7. We didn't use once a day on these younger cows like we did in previous years due to the fact that they were in good condition, and there was no reason to believe that reproduction would be a problem for them. We did have some evidence of early fetal loss. We did a herd PD through the herd test at 3 weeks, and it actually showed that 50% of the cows were in calf. We ended up with an improved in-calf rate at the end of mating between the weeks 9 and 11, which was that late November, early December period. As we mentioned before, the cows peaked higher and longer than last season, with quite a significant production drop from October. And that was when we experienced a real significant change in feed quality. Pasture cover went from 2,000, just over 2,000 to 24.95 within 2 weeks, and the production dropped from 2.1 to 1.7. So it was quite a significant shock to the energy balance in the cows at that time. And the mixed age cows were at 5.6 body condition score, and that mating started mating, they got to 4.9, and then they continued to drop to 4.5. So these cows were effectively continuing to mobilise body weight in order to maintain production, even though we didn't have the quality feed in front of them during that challenging time. Okay, so one of the other KPI areas is for us to work towards achieving 100% purposeful lives for calves. What we've done in this graph here, which is graphic 2.2 in your handout under animal wellbeing, is just to highlight the calf fate over that period of time. At our farm, we use all AB for mating, and in 2019 we started to use sex semen on our top BW cows and Wagon semen to provide both bull and heifer calves for first lot contract with LIC. This was extended in 2020 mating to also include heifer synchrony and sex semen to further reduce the bobby calves. And you'll see we've actually also included the 2021 data, which is sort of hot off the press there. And we've actually been able to move from 60% purposeful breeding objectives to about 71% in the 2021 year. So been able to move that up from about 34% when we first sort of started on this journey. So that has been a great result for us. Of course, there have been some challenges with that, primarily in relation to the calving rate. Particularly this season, we've just caught up with our production compared to the last year, just due to longer gestations on average, and a slightly slower calving rate over that period of time. The replacements are a really important part of our farm system. Every calf receives 2 litres of gold colostrum on arrival. They get tube fed, and they get another 2 litres again in the afternoon. Like I said before, our total blood protein test showed that they are achieving adequate amounts for good calf health. This year, we actually started to use the bricks to look at the colostrum levels, and actually there weren't very many of ours that actually came up over 22. So we do have a strategy in place if the total blood protein test shows that our processes aren't working, but at this stage there's no reason to believe that they aren't. Last year was the first year that we decided to grow our calves on farm. A couple of changes in our grazing situation meant that we had the opportunity to have them at home. They were grazed on 4.7 hectares of chicory from the 27th of November to the 20th of April. We added into that system about 30 tonne of extra feed, 10 tonne of palm kernel and 20 tonne of grass silage. And the calves then went on to the new grasses at the end of April, about the 20th of April, and were able to give them a really nice grazing before the cows were due on them later on. We achieved some excellent live weight gains. You can see the progress that we made along that period, between that sort of 6 months to 12-month period. And we knew we were able to set them up with good puberty growth rates and then be able to send them off to the grazier. So our graziers, our young stock are sent off farm as rising R2s, and then return back to the farm normally on the 1st of May. This body condition score graph is a key part of our KPI that we measure on farm to look at animal welfare and animal health situations. All cows received an individual body condition score from a certified assessor at the plan starter calving and the plan starter mating, and then normally we try and do it again in November, February, March and May, so we do it quite frequently. Our cows calved at an average of 5.7 in that year, which was actually really high. If you remember, we came off the end of the drought. We fed quite a lot of palm kernel at the end to get condition and covers back up, and the cows responded really, really well to that. So they were higher than target, and of course they mobilised quite a lot of that weight during the early part of the production season.
I think that's just shown in that sudden spike from April to May, the end of May, was just that diet or that high level of palm kernel, because we had very little grass coming from a very low average cover.
And we use the UNZ body condition score drive calculator to dry cows off based on their calving date and body condition score at the end of each season. So that's how we're able to use the body condition score data to enable that. A couple of other things I'll just quickly touch on are around, from an animal welfare point of view, a shade and shelter objective. So at our farm, we use temperature and humidity data along with respiration rates to identify any conditions that might be indicating heat stress in our cows. Last season, we had about 105 days that exceeded cow comfort levels and risked milk production. And so what we did was we moved to 3-2 milking by just before Christmas. And that was time to reduce any high somatic cell counts, remove them from the herd as well. And then we were using sprinklers at the 11 a.m. and 6 p.m. milkings to cool the cows, and offer shade after the 5 a.m. milkings to help during those hot, humid days. Crop paddocks are normally chosen with some shelter objectives in mind, whether they're actually in the paddock or in a paddock nearby, so we can actually allow access to those during the heat of the day. And we've also installed extra troughs in the races to access water, for cows to access water during peak demand. Spore counts are a big challenge for us too. Serum zinc levels are tested just to measure how efficient our zinc program is, and we always have in the budget an allocation for using boluses if needed, about 11k there, and we also use dietary changes to help manage the loading of high spore counts. So having the crops and the palm kernel there helps to reduce the ingestion of high spores as well. Okay, so any questions about animal wellbeing before we move on to the environment there? Okay, we'll keep trucking along then. We're going for time, okay. So 2 big KPIs for the environment. Biological greenhouse gases per hectare, which is our methane and our nitrous oxide, and also our model nitrogen loss, kilograms per hectare. Both of these come out of out of Overseer. We load our Overseer data there, and what you can see under our KPIs is our trend over time. So the reason that we're not achieving our target, of course, is that we had an increase in both those KPIs this year. And that was primarily as a result of our higher milk production. So higher milk production increased both our model nitrogen loss and our greenhouse gas. However, trends over time, and I'll show you in a minute, kind of indicate that we are continuing to reduce our overall environmental footprint. We've had a continued reduction in nitrogen use and purchased nitrogen surplus, and our total greenhouse gas increased over time by about 2.8%, which includes also the carbon dioxide part of it. So our carbon dioxide actually went down, even though we had an increase in methane and no change in our nitrous oxide. We also had a slight increase in our phosphorus loss from our root zone from 0.8 to 1, and we carry out visual soil assessments by balance just to look at the physical characteristics of our soil. So I'm just going to go into a little bit of detail of each of those areas. Those are the things that we're measuring over time. Let's look at the results from this year compared to the previous years. You'll see on the right hand side, this is our biological greenhouse gas, and of course, because we produce an extra 10,000 kilos of milk solid, I guess production is associated with dry matter intake. So we have quite a big increase, just like most farmers will have, with the extra kilos produced, and that's how Overseer models it. So this is different from FarmX, so we need to make sure we understand that the two models are different. Overseer calculates the output, and then it associates the greenhouse gases with the dry matter intake. What is quite interesting, so we were trending down over time with, I guess it was a decrease in milk solids. This year here in 2017, we did 178,000 milk solids as well. So the same production of milk solids, but with a lower biological greenhouse gas footprint. The trend over time through reducing stocking rate, reducing board and feed, and all that sort of stuff is still on a decline. I think we will find that we will have seasonal response to the years, until we delink dry matter intake and methane production, we will still see this sort of trajectory of higher and lower years as we go with our biological greenhouse gases. Nitrogen loss over time, similar story. We moved, every time you use Overseer, there's always a bit of an update in the numbers as well. And what we can see there is that a couple of changes. Because we had more cows and milk in the autumn, our nitrogen loss associated with that tends to increase. So that's more cows urinating on paddocks at a higher risk and a higher stocking rate. So we effectively cull a little bit later because we had a better production season. The wetland catchment area has been reassessed. So NIWA, who does our modelling, have been able to determine that our catchment area for our wetland, instead of being 33 hectares, is 7.6 hectares. So while it's working very efficiently, it extracts about 61.7% of our nitrate load, works very effectively, but the actual catchment area of it has been reduced due to some more up-to-date modelling. The nitrogen fertiliser applied on pasture has reduced over time from 161 in the 17-18 year here down to 138 in the 2021 year. And part of that is no nitrogen used in June and July, and only nitrogen used for new grass in that May period. We have gibberellic acid available to us if we need to use it in the early spring or the late autumn periods. And we've used My Pasture Planner to develop a optimal nitrogen use plan in conjunction with our soil nitrogen tests. And that is aimed to further reduce our nitrogen use on the pastoral area down to about 120. Plus we have nitrogen that we use on crops separately there. So all new grasses are planted with Ecotane Plantain, which is now recognised in the Overseer model. We don't see that in our 2021 results, but we should see that come through in this season's Overseer results. We also have white clover and red clover species in those pastures as well. Just a quick overview that we have chemical, biological and physical soil health properties that we're looking to analyse. So this is a process that we use to ensure that our management practices are maintaining and enhancing the physical characteristics of our soil using a visual soil assessment. So we rank very good there. We have no cultivation, so everything is direct drilled on the farm in order to maintain quite light loamy soils that we have got here. Excuse me. Soil tests are used annually to maintain our chemical health of the soil, and we can see that our LSP over time is pretty much averaging out, highs and lows between soil test years, but sitting around that 42 on average. We've got increasing pH over time, and we can see that potassium, magnesium and sulphur are all slightly reducing over time from those trend lines, and an increase in calcium, of course, which is connected with our pH levels there. We are at the moment measuring carbon content of the soil and also carbon dioxide emissions as part of the Waikato University greenhouse gas project that they're doing on the farm. So we're looking forward to starting to see some of the results from there. The key area that we do look at is we've got a farm environment plan which we use for the farm. We have just invested in a planting plan. We've got about 7 hectares of stock excluded land on the farm already, and we have got a plan in place for the next 3 to 5 years for continued planting and maintenance. And the last environmental KPI that we measure is the shed fresh water use. So we have a target of about 55 litres per hectare per day. Last year, particularly with the 105 days, which cows were at risk with heat stress in the Waikato, we did use the sprinklers quite a lot. And having a longer lactation meant that our shed usage went up to about 88 litres per cow per day. So that's an increase from the year prior at 86. So that's an area that we're looking to maybe spend a bit of time and focus on how we can look to recycle or manage water use in the farm in the future, isn't it, Tom?
Definitely.
Okay, any questions on the environmental KPIs? Sorry, I'm rattling through this quite quickly now. No, okay. So business health. We have 3 primary KPIs to ensure that we have a strong, sustainable business. Farm working expenses, operating profit per hectare, and our return on asset. Farm working expenses, our $4 target once again eluded us last year. We continue to invest in other areas of our wagon wheel, which allow us to attract extra income in future years or allow us to future-proof the system. We've had a significant lift in operating profit this year from 24.05 the year prior to 34.82. We don't have a top 20% benchmark yet. We normally get that available to us around about December. Our aim is to be in the top 20% for profit and to be able to do it in a resilient and sustainable way. Our return on asset with asset values of $70,000 a hectare came back at about 5%. We have a target of 6% in that area. The year that has just gone, the 2021 year, our total farm working expenses compared to budget were about $26,000 over. So we spent about $870,000 versus the budget of $844,000. Alongside that, we also started the year with a budget of $6.40 payout with no dividend expected. So our actual income was $142,000 over target. Most of the extra farm working expenses came as a result of us ensuring we had enough feed supply to be able to make the most of the season payout. And it was more about, we had savings in some areas and then extra expenditure in others. So some really clear examples were a reduction in silage making expenses, but that was used to purchase extra feed on that we weren't able to make on farm. We changed some of our grazing costs to investing in chicory and feed for the calves to be able to grow them at home. We had reductions in wage costs because we couldn't fill our full team for the year. And so some of that was offset with extra feed costs as well. There's quite a bit of detail in the handout under 4.1 about some of the variances. I guess the key thing is that we spent pretty much the same amount as we did the year prior, and we're able to achieve an extra $10,000 kilos of milk solid and an extra $200,000 worth of income as a result of that. So we feel like it was a pretty good result for us. I've just pulled this one out this morning. It's the Waikato average for from Dairy Base. Like I said before, they haven't got a top 20% yet, but we can see that our farm, compared to the average, the average was 2,500, we achieved about 3,400 for our operating profit. I guess a couple of key parts with that is that our operating profit margin continues to increase. We are looking at creating a resilient business that is able to extract profit from income. So we don't want to just keep increasing our income and be spending more money to do that. And we can see that our operating profit margin at 35.7% has been slowly increasing over time, but is also higher than the average for the Waikato so far this season. Opening debt is another key indicator for our farm. We are aiming to keep our debt levels at the start of each season at around $20 a year. What we've got on this table is just a quick summary of each year and the changes in debt level and the associated opening debt per kilo of milk solid. This really, it drives the use of funds in the farm, and our goal is to pay down debt over time and to reduce our interest rate liability. The farm targets debt repayments of $180,000 in a $6.50 payout year, with a minimum of $100,000 every year. The reason this is we want to make sure that the business is financially stable and in a position to be able to borrow when we get some indications about investment or infrastructure that might be required for the future. And so all investment decisions are made in relation to what our current opening debt is. We will continue to focus on debt repayment, but we also need to ensure that we are maintaining the ability of the farm to generate profit in a safe way and to meet our Wagon Wheel KPIs. Very quickly, our break-even milk price for the last year was at $7. And that's really the milk price that meets our business's needs. And that actually includes the debt repayment, interest, and of course drawings, which we don't have for the farm. All management wages are paid through our wages bill there. Okay, are there any questions about our business health before we move into the last two sections? The quality workplace. So we couldn't do anything on farm without a wonderful team there. So we've got two key KPIs under our quality workplace. One is the Workplace 360 assessment, and the other one is average hours worked per week. So the Workplace 360 assessment has superseded the 5 pillars that DNZ used for indicators of quality workplace. Our assessment done for the end of last year showed that we achieved 100% in the foundation level, and we were able to achieve 79% at the good level, part 2, and 63% at the part 3, the great level. The idea of this is to ensure we are meeting minimum compliance levels, but also to make sure that we're progressing in the other areas over time. The good thing with this assessment is that it allows us to see areas that we can continue to progress and work towards. This is the first year we've used this indicator as part of our assessment, and we will continue to use this in the future. The other area that we look at is total hours worked on farm for the season. We had an increase in hours worked on farm for the last year, even though it has decreased over time from about 50 hours a week down to 45. It increased last year to about just over 46 hours. So we had some challenges with changes in team. We changed from having kind of effectively 3 full-timers to 2 full-timers plus a part-timer, working 40 hours during calving and 20 hours for the rest of the season. we found it was a really hard role to maintain, wasn't it, Tom? Trying to find
somebody that it suited, really.
Yeah. So, and even with the help of student relief and the use of contractors for fertiliser and effluent spreading, our workload for our team was increased. What we found, though, quite interesting when we analysed the hours worked per week is quite a significant change in work hours. So we're finding that systems in place allow us to reduce our hours worked in the spring period, but we are finding that we are having an increase, particularly over the last 2 seasons in the summer. Do you want to explain a little bit about what's happening there, Tom?
I guess, yeah, last year without being able to find that half a person to help out through calving, we did have the assistance of student relief. So St. Peter students that come down and milk or help during the day. Lani and I just concentrated on the essential jobs. The great thing with having the effluent pond was, we don't have to spread anything from the end of May through to the end of August. Then we had a big 3 weeks emptying the pond, and then we didn't have to think about it until the end of October again. So, it really saved time. And you'll see, that drop in hours just before the 17th on the yellow line of September. Lani and I just preparing ourselves for mating, and then that busy first couple of weeks of mating, was busy, and then we really ours picked up when we got busy preparing crop ground or starting to mow pre-mow for the cows, and then quiets down around Christmas. But that's what I'm saying is we've done job time analysis for the last 2 years running, and just analysed how long we're spending on certain tasks and where we need help. So by using last year using contractors to just help support me, less time spent spreading fert, but also through November spreading effluent as well, just so we could concentrate on mating and pasture growth or quality. So
the last couple of dry years have increased workload over the summer, haven't they, Tom? Part of that is the system, and then the requirement to be able to top up the feed pasture available with palm kernel and silage as well.
So more trailers of palm kernel taken out and more loads of silage. So for periods last year and the year before, we were feeding 3 loads a day, just with the volume that we were needing to feed, the number of cows we had, but also just trying to spread the amount out through a 24-hour period, just to try and increase utilisation. But double fencing all the crops because we had quite a few breakouts for 1 week, so we just decided everything would be double break, and we didn't have any more breakouts after that. So it all takes that little bit extra time, but we were rewarded with the extra milk. So
excellent. So we start to see a bit of a flattening of the curve a little bit in relation to strategic time management on farm, and recognising the extra time required, particularly during these dry periods. It's not the cruising summers that it used to be. The last area of the Wagon Wheel KPIs we wanted to be able to share with you as community. This is the first time we've used public perception surveys to identify our community's view of our farm. We asked them about their view on whether our farm provides social and economic wealth to our close community, whether we're taking care of stock in the environment, and whether we're providing educational opportunities. So we were able to survey participants, 350 participants at our public open day. 40% of them had never been on a farm before. And we've got our first year of results to be able to look at. So 90% of people that attended thought that we were adding social and economic wealth, and then 100% agreed or strongly agreed that we were taking care of stock environment and providing educational opportunities. So some of the highlights is that we had over 2,000 visitors to the farm last year and hosted over 72 events. And since its inception, our farm has actually hosted a whopping 9,570 people. So there's been quite a lot of people through the gate. The highlights always involve the public open day, in which we're able to get people who wouldn't normally get out onto a farm to experience the various things involved in farming. We host local primary schools and also secondary schools from throughout the Waikato and Bay of Plenty. St Peter's School has also offered the opportunity for the Te Awa Cycleway to continue through the farm alongside the river for approximately about 4.5 k's, and that development has been ongoing this year. So we look forward to that opening near the end of this year, probably December or January this year, and we will then be able to have a whole lot of public cycling all the way along our farm. So we pretty much run out of time. That's the hour gone. We just wanted to thank everybody for participating today. Thank you for your continued feedback, ideas and suggestions to ensure that we continue to progress our farm in a direction that is real and relevant to you. We encourage you to share this information. If you've got any questions or queries that came out of it, please feel free to ask us. We have a really big thank you to our joint venture partner, Lincoln University, and to our demonstration partners, Balance, UNZ, Fonterra Farm Source, PGG Rights and Seeds, and Westpac. It's with their knowledge, support and resources that enables us to provide these sorts of events and information for our farm to share with the wider farming public. So we're very, very grateful for their continued support. So if there's any last questions about anything we've presented or anything that you've read in the handout, please feel free to either ask us now. I think we might turn off the Facebook Live feed, but you can feel free to stay on the Zoom call if you would like, or if you want to email, message either Tom or I, we can look to address some of those. So I think we'll just turn off the Facebook Live feed. How do I do that? Here. And